What's good, guys? I got this idea from the video when I watched a Pinky Cross video about making mid-ground plays called 99% of players get this wrong. I did want to make a bit of a response to this video because something that irked me right when I opened up the battle is that him showing this battle completely undercuts any point he's making about how your plays matter into the game and making mid grounds versus hard raids and anything. If you look at the matchup here, you see that it's a completely free win for Pink Cross. The reason is that Tapu Lele comes in and the opponent has literally no answer at all for Moonblast. Mawile is 3-hit KO'd. Blacephalon is, I'm gonna say 3 KO'd and maybe a roll 2 KO on Moonblast. I don't know what the Lele is, if it's Scarf, Specs, whatever. I have to assume that Specs are just straight up 2 KO Blacephalon. And yeah, it comes in on Buzzwole, Landorus, Mandibuzz, Mawile when it's damaged. So I don't think this battle really shows what he's trying to prove because you can play super conservatively in this game and obviously win due to the overwhelming matchup. But it does bring up a point that I do want to make. Tapu Lele is like a very, very impressive wall breaker. And that kind of transitions into what I'm going to try to tell you in this video. The mistakes that I think a lot of players are making right now is they don't have a lot of power on their teams. I'm talking immediate power. Like, say you have a bulky Pokemon in, who do you go into to get that guy out of there to kill him immediately? Lele is one of those Pokemon. But let's talk about things that are in Gen 9 SVOU. The doctrine of overwhelming firepower and overused. So to demonstrate my point of how important overwhelming firepower is in games, I just looked through my replays and found an example from like a million games that I've played where this has come up. What I do a lot when I'm building is I usually have a very, very, very strong wall breaker on each and every single one of my offensive teams. On this team, it is Choice Specs Volcanion. So let's see how it plays out and minimizes the decisions I have to make in the battle. Play. The first turn I left with Volcanion. This is for the simple reason that if he leads Ogerpon, I kill it easily with Fire Blast. Fire Blast from Specs Volcanion is a 1 KO. If he leads Dragapult, it's probably Boots, Banded maybe. It's Specs, I guess, is a possibility. But we do in the team have a Sylveon. So I think he'll be a little bit hesitant to click Specs Draco turn 1. I've done a lot of these types of turn 1s. And I don't honestly feel that this is too risky of a play to just stay in and click Fire Blast versus this team. Now, you may be asking, how is this no risk? He does have a Moltres there, who is a resist to Fire Blast. Let's go to the damage calculator real quick. So Volcanion Fire Blast does a ton of damage to Moltres. It's a ton of damage to the entire team. This is a big thing I want to talk about in this video. When a resisted move does 50%, then it's free. It might as well not even be a resist. And that's the power of these wall breakers. Alright, so I go for Fire Blast here, and in case you're wondering why I was Fire Blast over Steam Eruption, that's why Ogerpon does carry Water Absorb. So here is another free play. I actually Terra Water on this Pokemon, and I click Fire Blast. Because I know for a fact the Headlong Rush does not kill me when I'm Terra Water. That's the power of overwhelming firepower and OU. Sometimes you can get the chain kills, and it's that easy. Let's watch this thing just die. See ya, Tusk! Wouldn't wanna be us. Goes Palt here. Go to Sylveon here. Now I get kind of owned here because I didn't know what the Dragapult was. I thought Sylveon would be able to handle it pretty well. Actually, Terra, Blast, Choice Banded, Ghost. Going to Kingambit. Alright, let's pause right here. This play looks like a bit of a situation. So what I do here is I double into Volcanion, expecting Moltres to comes in. I absolutely do not want Kingambit to get burnt. This is not that risky of a play, and you're gonna see why later on. I'm fine if Dragapult actually stays in and kills Volcanion, but to know in the future, if you do make a similar play like this, it's always good to double into your breaker and get a kill with them. If you don't double into them, they're gonna struggle to come in. You have to be making plays to get your breakers in. In this situation, I didn't lose much from it, but in general, you should be doubling in to get your breakers in. Alright, you're about to see why I didn't care at all. So I sack Sylveon here, and now I bring out Torterra, and the game is over. That does not want to KO me anyway, and I Shell Smash up Stone Edge and clean up the game with Torterra pretty easily. All I had to do was hit that Stone Edge. The crit certainly did not matter. And now you're dead to Woodhammer. I didn't expect the Sucker Punch at all, though. I should have, because it's Choice Banded, but I didn't. And it's like Woodhammer again. And that's a good game. So let's move on to our next game. So what happens when you're trying to use the breaker, you're following the overwhelming firepower strategy, but you're just face the worst matchup possible and just get hardwalled. I'm going to show you a game where your Pokemon, if it's a really good breaker, it'll be so strong it can still punch through the garbage matchups. The breaker on this team, it's Modest, Specs, Keldeo, Terra Water as well. And don't end up tearing this one Terra Water. I think that's a bit of a misplay by me. I probably should have teared this Terra Water. We're going to watch this game. This is against Blimlax. I got sent this game on Discord by one of my friends. They said I got owned. I actually disagree. I actually ended up losing this game, but I wanted to show off how well Keldeo did in the worst matchup I've ever seen a Keldeo since Gen 7 OU and the nerf of Toxapex. Keldeo was terrible in earlier gens. It's very good now, though. Okay, so to analyze this matchup, we have to see that there's a Hydrapple, and there's a Gloking, and there's a Clefable. So what that means is that when Keldeo locks itself into a move, one of the regen guys comes in, they'll scout it out. Both of them 4x resist Keldeo stabs, and they take up the non-resisted one pretty well. I don't have Focus Blast, I have Secret Sword Vacuum Wave. So this matchup, it looks like Keldeo won't be able to do jack shit. Why don't we see how much Keldeo does in this battle when it looks horrible? So we lead off with Roaring Moon, because I know that my way to break fat, even though it looks horrible here, it's still gotta be Keldeo. Roaring Moon is not going to do anything versus Clef, Mandibuzz. King Gambit is going to struggle against his Heat Bring of Tauros, and even Mandibuzz is too much for King Gambit to normally handle. So I know that I have to win this with Keldeo. I've done the calcs. I know that Keldeo can, in fact, still break through this team, even though it looks impossible for Keldeo. I know what I have to do. I lead off with Moon. I just throw out its speed booster. I didn't need that anyway. I just go for Acrobatics, get some damage off. I did Terra Fly, maybe a bit of a misplay. I knock off Mandibuzz's boots, very big play. I go into Lander's T. So what I end up doing here is get crit, because Blimlax obviously has no skill. So I go for Stealth Rock, says he does whatever, I don't care. So my next move is clearly going to be a free U-turn into Keldeo, and that's where I have to start making progress. I have to start making progress. I have 2 Pokemon nearly dead. I have to punch back. And I know Keldeo is going to be the one who has to do it. So what he ends up doing here is roosting to scout my move. Alright, let's pause right here. We have 91% Mandibuzz against Keldeo. So what's going to happen here is that I'm going to crit Hydro Pump on an assumed roost. So he was going to scout out the Keldeo's move and then go to one of his 4x resists. Actually didn't matter at this point. Hydrapple took too much. Hydrapple could not come into Hydro Pump at this point. Despite it 4x resisting, I got it down enough with the Roaring Moon that I know for a fact that Hydrapple cannot come in. So I would be getting a kill anyway. But I did crit this Hydro Pump right here. So that's 1 kill for Keldeo in a matchup where it should be getting 0, theoretically. Like, theoretically, this is a perfect matchup. So, actually, this is a roll to kill. I didn't end up going for it. I think that was the right play to not risk a Keldeo. I think the roll is like 21 to 24. I ended up not risking it. And I switched to Petch, but he does switch out interestingly enough. So, if I stayed in there, I think I got another kill. I don't think Hydrapple could take 2 from 44-ish. But regardless, I go to Petch, and this game gets a little bit boring. I think Petch stays in for a while against Iron Treads. I absolutely do not want him to ever rapid spin. That's why I leave in Petch, because Landorus T is at like no HP. I need the rocks to be up. I need hazards to be up so Keldeo can punch through this team. I need to win the game with Keldeo. He's got to punch through the team. I don't have to win the game with Keldeo. I have to punch through his team with Keldeo. Now we're just going to skip through this a little bit. Boring. Glow King comes in. I believe a Shadow Ball again. Shadow Ball. And I think he chilies into, yeah, Tuscanade. I sack a Roaring Moon here to get a free switch into Keldeo, and I click Hydro Pump. Now we're going to watch the damage. 45%. Gets the max roll 24, and next pump kills. He knows that. He has a switch out here, and this just dies. Straight up, Glow King dead. Goes back to Hydrapple here. This is a bit of a weird play by him. I think he switches out again here. Or Earth Powers. I forget. I know that he did not click Giga Drain, which is what I certainly would have clicked, because I just sack Landorus here. I think he's just going to click Giga Drain, but he ends up going to Treads for some interesting reason. So I actually go to Petch here, because I cannot let him spin, but he actually doubles into Hydrapple, gets Regen Black, gets Regen back, plays pretty well around here. Yeah, I go for Shadow Ball, drop him. Let's continue. Yep. Okay, so that was a terrible misplay. I ended up losing almost all the HP on Petch when I could just sack Landorus. Landorus dies on hazard, so that spin was in no threat. But I did want to make sure that Treads would die to Spike plus Rocks. I ended up thinking that was a bit of a misplay at the end there, but it did help us out for the short term. But let's see how I come back from it pretty much to put myself in a good position to win. So I bring in Keldeo. I Secret Sword on the full HP Hydrapple pretty much. And then I switch out here into Lucifer, and I get up a Spike. Yeah, I'm playing my outs. I noticed that this is unaware Clef, which makes me very confused, because that was the first sign that the end game was not going to play out how I thought it would. So I Spike again. He does not go Treads. Treads would have died to Hazard anyway. I missed a Ruinate. That's pretty huge. He goes for a Nasty Plot. I think I just Whirlwind because I know that I'm dead anyway. I believe I get Tauros. That actually does little damage. Yeah, it's a problem with Ting Lu. He's very, very bulky. You need a super wall breaker. That's a thing that new players don't really understand. How bulky these Gen 9 Pokemon are. Like Ting Lu, the offensive versions of Ting Lu were banned for a reason. Ting Lu is still extremely bulky. The only reason he's still allowed is that he does not have a recovery move. He's extremely bulky. This team has no way to remove Ting Lu quickly. That's another reason you want to have these super hard hitting wall breakers to prevent layers of spikes from going up. You need some guy like Keldeo, Volcanion just to punch through Ting Lu immediately. Okay, so Body Press lives again. The GOAT Ting Lu is truly quite unstoppable. I get Raging Bull, die. And then I go into Keldeo. Interesting thing, I'm actually slower than Tauros with this Keldeo, as long as he's max speed Tauros. I assume he is, but I'm not sure. I go for Secret Store and the Protector. I did not know he had, to be fair. I thought he was going to Hydrapple. But even then, Clef is taking hazards damage, which is very strange. But it does end up working out for him. So he does read me here. I think he Earth Powers. I was attacking Petch anyway, but he Earth Powers, stopping Gamma from coming in. I could have just Secret Sworded again, but I thought he would for sure click Giga Drain. So I just sack Petch. No, I didn't. I sack Petch because I didn't not want Gambit to get Earth Power on the switch in. So I actually got red there. Kind of. I mean, if he expected Petch to come, it didn't matter what he clicked. Anyway, now I go for Kitao, drop Hydra as low as possible. I know that Keldeo can, in fact, clean up if I can get this thing, like, dead, basically, to hazards and get Hydro Pump win. Killed pretty much every single Pokemon that's dead so far, and we're in a good position to almost win this game. So Tauros comes in. I did not switch to Keldeo there, which is another time he read me. I did switch to Keldeo here. So this is a major turn where the bluff actually mattered, because it would have killed me the next time. I believe I Sacred Sword in the Protect, and then I double into King Gambit because it's not really a play. I literally had to do that. If I just stayed in Sacred Sworded, this thing would have outsped and killed me. So the only way I could have won, in theory, is if he went Clef or Hydrapple on my Secret Sword, and I brought out King Gambit. Well, I mean Clef on the Secret Sword. I don't think he's bringing Hydrapple on the Secret Sword. But bringing King Gambit, he brings out Clef. I SD here and try to win with King Gambit. However, it does not go to plan because he's the legendary Flamethrower Unaware Clef, a very common set from nobody ever. I just go for switch to Keldeo here, which I've totally forgot about. I thought I just like threw, but this, I think it gets another kill. Yeah, it definitely kills this. With Pump, I believe. Yeah, because I had to force the Clef out. So Keldeo's killed 4 Pokemon on the opponent's team with a Hydrapple, Slow King Galar. That's the power of this superior firepower. This Keldeo put in so much work against a team it has no business to do anything in. This is the worst matchup I've ever seen for Keldeo in SVOU, and look at how much damage Specs Keldeo was able to do. All you have to do with Breakers is play well. I would have won this game if it wasn't Flamethrower Clef or like I did a little bit better on the other ways. But the way I played Keldeo in this game was perfect. You should play your breakers aggressively. They should be getting kills. You should bring them out often. What you want from a breaker is for it to be strong enough to not even care about resist. Like these were 4x resist, and Keldeo just didn't care. He just kept pounding. That's what you want out of your breaker. We've seen the breakers in action. Now, how do you build your own breaker? What goes on a team? That's what we're going to analyze right now. So the biggest things you got to do when building a breaker, you got to put together something that can beat the most amount of OU Pokemon and beat common defense, of course. I've highlighted the 5 Pokemon that you absolutely have to ask yourself if your breaker can destroy. Tinglu, that's a really obvious one. If your breaker lets Tinglu come in, set up 15 layers of hazards, that is devastating for your team. You do not want to see that happen. As for Great Tusk, he has almost half of the teams in overused use him. If you take out Stall, that puts him at what, 50%? So if you play a non-stall game, 50% of the time you're going up against Great Tusk. You need to be able to have a breaker who does not let Great Tusk in. That would be a complete failure of a breaker to lose to the most common Mon in overused. Moltres is one of the most annoying Pokemon in overused. If you have other Pokemon, they are almost certainly going to be annoyed by Moltres. Any U-turners, they do not want to get flame-bodied. Like King Gambit, he will get bodied by Moltres. You need someone to help kill Moltres. I think Moltres is one of the most annoying defensive Pokemon that you need to remove immediately. Corviknight, one of the bulkiest walls in overused. Very common. Stall staple. Balance staple. He's very good all the time. You don't want him to come in, U-turn for free all the time, gain momentum. You do not want that to happen. Slowking Galar, similar, except that he can chili reception and has regenerator. So he's even more annoying. If you cannot kill him in 2 hits, he will be back. He will be back, folks. You have to be able to kill Galar in 2 with your breaker, at least before he terras. You can't take on all of Slowking Galar's terras with a special attacker. That's just not possible. But as long as you force Terra, that at least gives you a lot of momentum. Another part of what makes breakers good is they need to be able to come in on things. Like, for instance, Rampardos has 160 attack. It doesn't matter. He's not a good breaker because it's impossible to find an opening for Rampardos. Even if you U-turn, what is out that the opponent has that lets Rampardos come in? You got to think about that. Now, I put an example of 4 common OU Pokemon that are used as breakers and what they can come in for free on from a U-turn. Volcanion, he can 1-KO Corviknight and Moltres. Keldeo, benefiting from a U-turn or a double, can 1-KO Great Tusk, Corviknight, Moltres. Kyurem, Moltres and Great Tusk. Ogerpon, also Moltres and Great Tusk. What this means is that they essentially force these Pokemon out, and your opponent should be forced to pick a Pokemon that he has to sack to your breaker. That's the ideal you want. You want to see these Pokemon come in on these Pokemon and just claim a kill, or perhaps burn a Terra. Burning a Terra is also huge for the game. Okay, now what makes a good teammate for these strong breakers? We're going to go over a little bit of a flow chart for this. So let's say King Gambit is a teammate. What does he bring in? That's the green arrow. King Gambit can bring in Great Tusk, Moltres, Corviknight. So if you have King Gambit, you can double into any one of the OU breakers we've been talking about and get a kill on these Pokemon. And King Gambit is a threat that has to be respected. Furthermore, King Gambit does absolutely not let in Slow King Galar, whom these four Pokemon cannot one-shot. Another teammate can be Meowscarada. Meowscarada comes with U-turn, so you can bring your breakers in for free without even having to predict and double into it, maybe risking a breaker in the process. Meowscarada can just U-turn and bring in one of your breakers on Moltres or Corviknight, and they can just give you a free kill. Meowscarada also does not really allow Glowking to come in on it, threatening to do a lot of damage with knockoff and removing Slowking Galar's boots. I hope I inspired you guys to get into team building, more creative stuff. This is a lot of fun. Like using a wall breaker and just punching an immediate hole through the opponent's team. Not really much thought behind what button you're clicking. It's very, very fun to just do. And it feels like you're in a position of extreme power rather than just like pivoting 700 times in boots, which is like what Gen 9 OU has like become. But I have to say it, this anti-meta strategy of just having a wall breaker that just kills everybody is very powerful for me. I've hit like number 5 with Torterra this gen because Volcanion kind of carries that team entirely. Well, Volcanion Dragonite, but Volcanion on the wall breaking side. Anyway, let's see what you guys have to say in the comments. I'd love to see if you guys have thought of any stall breakers and slash wall breakers that I might have underlooked, or maybe the tier is underlooking. Thank you guys for watching.